In this video, I'm going to go through every state that has had a split delegation in Congress ever since the start of 2015 to the start of the 115th Congress, going through everything with a split delegation and whether they still have a split delegation, or if not, why they lost their split delegation. So, first of all, this video is not meant to predict which states will gain or not have split delegations in 2026. I did actually do a video as to why, and I'll link it in the description, as to why Democrats are going to have an almost impossible time winning. And by the way, there won't be a link if I delete that video already. But this video, we're just going to talk about why states have lost their split delegations that they have had. And to do this, you really have to think about the elections and what happened in each election. And 2016, the Democrats gained 2 seats in the Senate, Republicans gained none. Democrats flipped Illinois and New Hampshire, and again, Republicans got diddly squat. So Illinois and New Hampshire were now both blue. Neither one of them had a split delegation. Now, why did this happen? Illinois was pretty obvious that, Tammy Duckworth blew him out, won by 15%. It was pretty obvious that he only got in because of a red wave election in 2010, and a pretty extreme red wave election too, as Republicans gained 6 seats. And in a special election, they even briefly flipped Massachusetts for about 2 years. So Illinois was pretty clear it was going to flip. I mean, it was unsustainable for a Republican to have, a seat in a state as blue as Illinois. New Hampshire was more surprising. It was very close. Republicans won by 0.2%. New Hampshire is always a state that's always Democrat leaning, but you still always feel like it can be a swing state, especially with having a Republican trifecta on a statewide level. So it's probably one of the weirdest states politically, definitely one of the weirder ones. And in New Hampshire is a state that, again, has a vibe of a Republican-leaning state based on its, rural interior, and somehow always still votes Democrat. And it's interesting to me as to how it's that way. But that's how they lost a split delegation. So again, Illinois, because there was a Republican who shouldn't have even been there in the first place. And New Hampshire, it was because just ever so slightly shifts away, and very complicated state to forecast politically. Now, ooh, nice little waterfall. Anyway, as for the 2017, we briefly actually had a special election flip Alabama back to blue. But that's because Republicans put up someone who had a little bit of pedophilia attached to him. And combine that with the strong, anti-Republican sentiment of 2017. We saw New Jersey's governorship flip blue. We saw the Washington Senate or House, I think Senate flip blue as well. It was really bad in 2017 for Democrats, and that was a big reason as to why we saw the Democrats take Alabama from the Republicans. Combine that with the fact they put up, again, Roy Moore, who probably shouldn't have even been nominated in the first place. And that only lasted 3 years. The 2020 election cleaned that right up, and we'll get to that. But Alabama actually did briefly have a split delegation in Congress, which is really crazy to think about. And again, it was all a mistake on the Republicans' part. Like, the Democrats should have never been there. Republicans just did something really stupid in 2017, and they corrected themselves. 2018, Democrats lose 4 seats, Republicans lose 2 seats. So a net gain of 2 for the Republicans, despite being one of the biggest blue waves in modern history because the map was just so historically bad. Democrats flipped North Dakota, Indiana, Missouri, and Florida. Florida, it was a signal that the state was going from a swing state to a pretty strongly Republican-leaning state. And we continue to see this tradition time and time again. 2020, Trump wins Florida by 3.5%. 2024 wins Florida by over 13%. We saw every bastion of Democrats really just be exterminated from, from the state of Florida, and that was actually legitimately impressive as to how they flipped that, which ended the split delegation in Florida. But I know it's very close too. But like Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, those are solid Republican states where, again, it's amazing how Democrats even survived, and were reelected in 2012 to even be there that long. But again, map worked against them. Arizona had a split delegation begin in 2018 thanks to Christian Sinema flipping that seat blue. And Nevada, Jackie Rosen was also elected to Congress, which ended a split delegation in Nevada and made both seats blue. By the way, Arizona's split delegation would end in 2020 in a special election as Democrat Mark Kelly won the seat. And now both seats, and they went from both being red to both being blue in a blink of an eye. Oh, and by the way, Mark Kelly survived the regular election in 2022, so Arizona is not back on the split delegation. They are, it is still fully blue over there. So you had Nevada and Arizona in 2020. Democrats gain out of 3 seats. They lose Alabama, but they gain Arizona special election. Both seats in Georgia. So Georgia is actually never under a split delegation. Just goes from both red to both blue in one election. And again, for the record, Democrats kept Raphael Warnock's seat in 2022 under their control. So it's still both blue, which again, just crazy how much that happens. But when you have a swing state, things can change again in a blink of an eye. And Colorado votes for a Democrat senator overwhelmingly. So Mark Gardner is out, John Hickenlooper is in. Colorado split delegation ends as they're both now Republicans. And in the state of actually, that's about it. So yeah, that's how Democrats flipped the Senate in 2020. And in 2022, only one seat flips. Pennsylvania flips blue. So that ends a split delegation in Pennsylvania as both seats are blue, but that wouldn't last because in 2024, Democrats can't get a single seat back. Republicans take 4. West Virginia, Montana, Ohio, which all had no business being Democrat anyway. And Pennsylvania, which is actually the swing state that Republicans barely managed to flip, but they did manage to flip. And so a split delegation re-emerged. And by the way, just Ohio, West Virginia, and Montana are all fully red. And it's amazing to me how Democrats lasted as long as they did. I get Ohio because we're still seen as a swing state back then, but it's incredible to me how West Virginia and Montana supported their Democrats for so long. And I mean, we all know that they lost them in the end, but I just don't get how they kept their incumbents for that long. So heading into 2024, not that many states have split delegations. Pennsylvania still has theirs. So does Wisconsin. They also have a split delegation of senators. Maine also has a split delegation of senators. We'll see if 2026 can change that and knock Susan Collins out of her seat, or if Maine will remain being a split delegation. And genuinely, I'm not sure what other states still maintain split delegations besides those 3. And again, this is not the most reliable indicator of what a swing state is, because Nevada, Arizona, Georgia still have all blue seats, and they're obviously swing states that Trump won this cycle. But it's just crazy how Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, then Maine out of nowhere has a split delegation, despite Maine, not being a swing state, not having a Republican anywhere else. So again, we'll see if 2026 will change that. And just one final thing. I know we said we weren't going to predict split delegations, but just for the fun of it, 2026, what states could be a split delegation? If John Ossoff loses, which is certainly possible, Georgia could flip to the Republican side, and that could emerge as a delegation. Michigan's a swing state, so you never know if they're going to finally elect a Republican. They haven't had a Republican senator since 2000, but as you know, with swing states, you can always get something interesting out of them, so you never know if a split delegation will emerge out of Michigan. Arizona, Nevada, I think both of them have already had their elections in the last 2 years, so they won't have a chance. Maine could end a split delegation, as you mentioned. North Carolina, we could see a split delegation emerge if they lose. Virginia, it's a stretch, but if Republicans can somehow choke it up and lose North Carolina, then we have a discussion on our hands. So, very interesting in 2026 to see what changes.